With inflation on the rise, pushing up interest rates, pushing up the cost of ownership, be it across council rates, your interest repayments, your insurances, the cost of owning property and the cost of investing in property is starting to really increase, especially off the record low interest rates we did have off the back of last year. Interest rates are on the move and the cost of owning property is skyrocketing. So today I want to talk about 3 different ways you can drastically increase your cash flow. And some of these tips are quite easy and quick to introduce. And the last tip I'm going to cover is a little bit more complicated, but has the potential to double your rental returns, which is pretty exciting. So let's jump into it. My first and biggest tip is have a look where your current rents are. The rental market has exploded over the last 12, 18, 24 months. Rental vacancies are sitting at record lows, and the rental market prices, the weekly rents have increased drastically. Now, I'm a big believer in the number one way to look after your tenants is to maintain and look after your property. I truly don't believe you should be discounting your rents. So jump onto realestate.com, jump onto Domain, have a look what properties in your area are renting for, and you might be surprised at just how much you could increase your rent without being a greedy landlord per se. I don't think there's anything wrong with maintaining your rents at market levels, provided, like I say, you're doing the right thing by your tenant and maintaining your property and looking after the home that they're living in. There's nothing wrong with keeping your rents at market levels. You should never feel bad for doing so. At the end of the day, if your rent's $50 below market value, you're essentially gifting your tenant $2,600 a year. Now, if you wouldn't gift your tenant $2,600 a year at Christmas, I don't think you should be doing that throughout the year through discounted rents. So really consider that. How much of a relationship do you have with your tenant? Do they actually care, or do they actually appreciate the fact that you are discounting your rent? Because I'd say in 99% of the cases, your tenant probably still feels hard done by. So I think you should be maintaining your property, keeping that property as tidy as possible, but very much focus on where the market rents are and make sure your rents aren't too discounted, because like I say, you wouldn't give that money to your tenant at Christmas, so don't be discounting your rent throughout the year. $20 a week is $1,000 a year, so just keep that in mind. So that's my number one tip, is to keep your properties at market rent, as this will drastically increase your cash flow. Keeping in mind throughout these 3 different concepts, your interest rate payments, your council rates, your insurance, there's not a lot you can do about them. You can shop around a little bit in regards to insurance and interest rates, but they're pretty much fixed costs. So you can control your rent, look at that, see if you can increase your rents towards market value, as that's going to drastically increase your cash flow position. The second big tip that I've got today, or the second concept I'm going to say, is moving away from a traditional long-term rental model and moving to a share house model, essentially renting each room by room. So what this might look like, you might have a typical 3-bedroom property that you might be able to achieve $400 a week for. But if you were able to go in and rent the 3 rooms individually, you might be able to get $250 per week for those 3 rooms. So you're looking at $750 versus $400 per week. Now there's a number of caveats and things to consider here. Firstly, you would need to cover your utilities. You'd need to cover power, and you need to cover the internet. So there is that expense on top here, and you're going to have maybe a few more vacancies. Rather than locking people in for a 12-month lease, you might be renting out the room on a 3-month period. So you're going to have a few more vacancies, but if you can increase your rent from $400 a week to $750, it's certainly worth considering. It's something that I know quite a few people in my local market are already doing, and they're seeing exceptional returns on their investment and drastically increasing their cash flow, which, as we come into this period that could be difficult for a lot of investors, this could be one way of keeping your properties on the market, keeping them cash flow positive, but instead renting them out room by room. But like I say, keep in mind there's a few extra overheads there might be a few extra cleaning things that you may need to take into account, and your vacancies might be a little bit higher. But renting out room by room is certainly one sure way to increase your returns. The third and final concept I want to speak about today is moving your property onto the short-term market, so Airbnb and the like. Depending on the market and depending on the property, we have seen some absolutely tremendous results from people switching their properties from a long-term basis over to the short-term basis. In many cases, we're seeing people double their returns even after paying slightly higher management fees. A couple of things to consider here. Being on the short-term market, your income is going to fluctuate throughout the year depending on where you are. So, if you're down in Tasmania, for instance, and you might be a really hot summer market, what you might consider there is renting it out on Airbnb for 6 months of the year, and then 6 months of the year renting it out fully furnished. And so depending on where the markets are, you really can play with that depending on how seasonal your market is. And like I say, you really can drastically increase your returns. So Airbnb is one market that we're looking heavily into at the moment. We've got a couple of properties up and running, and the returns straight off the bat are truly phenomenal. So that's the third big sector to be looking at, big concept to be looking at. If you are looking at increasing your cash returns, if you're looking at doing so here in Cairns, absolutely reach out. So there you have it, 3 different ways that you can drastically increase your rent: by looking at the market value for your long-term tenancies, by considering a room-by-room agreement, or switching your property over to the short-term Airbnb market. 3 big concepts that can drastically increase your cash flow and help you tackle these rising interest rates that we are seeing at the moment. If you would like advice on any 3 options, especially if you're looking in the Cairns market, absolutely reach out to me. I would love to help. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe. We bring out a heap of content on this channel and love bringing you new videos. And I look forward to talking to you shortly.